Hello everyone. So for those of you that have been following this channel, you know that I study day and night, and when I'm thinking, I'm reflecting on how the universe works, how energy works, how can we charge our batteries in different ways, what are all the different ways we can charge a battery. And there's limitless different ways to charge batteries. The ultimate battery is space itself, which holds an unlimited charge of energy. And the evidence that there's energy in space is that the material universe exists, which is entirely powered by and sustained energetically by space itself. When I say space, I'm talking about what we think of as empty space, and we just mean empty from material, right? What we think of as material, but we're actually talking about energy. So there's a lot of different ways to describe that, but I will let you make your own conclusions. What I'm here to share with you at this moment right now is something I'd like to share with you from, so we're here at the website free2thrive.com, and I'm going to share with you a little bit of what I'm studying right now, what I'm reading about, and this is really exciting. So let me back up. Let me see if I could back up one click and see where that takes us. Okay, so I typed in the quest for a unified field theory, and then I said, in Google, I said free to thrive, and that brought this up at the top here. The quest for a unified field theory fulfilled, question mark, free to thrive. And this is December 16th of 2023, it's dated. And so I clicked on that first selection, and here we are now. The quest for a unified field theory fulfilled, question mark. Has Nasim Haramein discovered the long-sought unified field theory? And the answer, my conclusion is yes, absolutely. But we can, think about that and continue to study all the different theories. But this is really important to be aware of. And I'm sharing this with you because it's part of my research. And let's go ahead and read this together, shall we? Okay, so let me see if I can put the lens in a wide angle. I'm just hoping that you could read this, but I do want to encourage you to go to this website yourself. Okay, so let's go ahead and read this together. So this is being shared for educational purposes and also for experimental purposes like thought experiments, right? Albert Einstein was unable to provide his lifelong dream of a single explanation for the 5 so-called natural forces of the universe, a unified field theory. It is said that he told friends that if anyone were ever to do it, it would be a geometer, not just a mathematician. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing things correctly, so please read this yourself and look up the correct pronunciations if you are having trouble pronouncing things as I am. He knew that everything was moving relative to each other, and that we lived in a universe of geometric dynamics. His equations were unable to get him there because he couldn't fully see the shape of things and was missing the necessary inclusion of fractals, holograms, and consciousness that connects it all. Then along came an unlikely, self-taught Don Quixote type character, Nasim Haramein. It seems this radical thinking young man may have completed and corrected Einstein's efforts and provided the geometric concepts and the accompanying math to finally unify the so-called separate forces. He has just published a paper, The Origin of Mass and the Nature of Gravity. That sounds very interesting. I'll be reading that as well. I don't know if I'll read it now with you, but I recommend reading that. Read everything you can about Nasim Haramein. He has just published a paper, The Origin of Mass and the Nature of Gravity, that includes this accomplishment as a subchapter, unification of forces from vacuum fluctuations. Unification of forces from vacuum fluctuations. Look at this. I look at this and I see a gravity drive unit. That's what I see when I look at that. because I know when we rotate magnetic fields within rotating magnetic fields within rotating magnetic fields, we have gravity drive propulsion. And there's infinite ways to do that, not just one way. That's very important to remember. My research and study indicate that. Haramein drove teachers crazy with his never-ending questions. That sounds familiar. I'm just talking about myself. And they returned the favor with their limited and incoherent answers, meaning they drove him crazy too. That's my interpretation of that. So he left traditional schooling in the 8th grade, though his Iranian father was a world-renowned child education specialist. Nassim recounts that he had ongoing direct experience with extraterrestrial and interdimensional intelligences from age 7. That's very exciting. Yeah, they're here to help us. We just have to be open to it. That's just my own words. That's also when he began meditating under the guidance of an Indian master. Nassim calls the realm of direct access transmission that he discovered hyperspace. As well, Haramein spent many years alone in his van, driving to various university libraries to gather documents, which he would then take into the desert for a month of solo study. This was the phase where one of my friends recommended that I go to a talk by Nassim in San Francisco. From the moment he began to speak, the hair rose on my neck, and I knew I was in the presence of a very deep knowing. It was as if he and I had been climbing the same mountain from different sides, and then met for the final ascent. We started working together the next day, and that was 26 years ago. I invited Nassim to present at the Sequoia Symposium on Unification that I had co-founded and was about to host. Some of the traditional university professors literally freaked out at his presentation and my own, calling it heresy, trying to stop us in the middle of our talks and ultimately apologizing and becoming colleagues. It's funny how that just keeps happening, right? We have to be open to new ideas. It's important. I mean, as long as no one's getting harmed, right? If no one's getting harmed, we need to be open to new ideas. Nassim, that's just my own thoughts. Nassim had a knack for sports and loved performing at the edge. He became an elite-level competitive skier and a world-class rock face free climber. His exploits also included deep free diving without a tank and racing motorcycles. He says his experience of high-performance sports have helped give him a visceral sense of pressure, zero-point balance, angular momentum, and interconnectivity with the field. This epic paper, a culmination of 2 decades of preliminary groundwork papers, is presented in traditional scientific format. This is necessary for peer review and publication. However, it does not make for easy going for the layperson. It's 52 pages with about 250 equations. I am not expert enough in math to validate their meaning and accuracy. I do know that while Nassim and I were working directly together for about 5 years, he made 24 notable predictions, such as every galaxy would be found to be centered by a black hole. When he had completed the upper torus of his resonator device, its dual would appear energetically beneath the table. The resonator would greatly enhance the vitality of water, plants, and food. The first 22 have all come true. The next was this paper, and the final one was completion of his resonator energy and counter-gravity generator. Those 2 remain to be seen, but so far, so good. And I say you don't need to wait for Nasim Haramein to make one. Make your own. Study John Searle, Otis T. Carr, Thomas Townsend Brown, Tom Bearden. There's many great experimenters that shared all their research about how to make a gravity drive system. And it's really just spinning magnetic fields within magnetic fields within magnetic fields, and it's rotating those really fast and watching it push itself through space, right? That's what we're talking about. Okay, Those two remain to be seen, but so far so good. What I recommend is that you watch the following 2 clips from Thrive 2, wherein we were privileged to preview the concepts in this paper and fully illustrate them with high-quality visual effects. After you've done this, I recommend that you read the abstract and introduction on pages 1 and 2, and the discussion on and conclusion on pages 40 through 43. Then you can leaf through the paper itself and make what you can of the text and diagrams. Nassim and the unified field. Okay, you can watch this on your own. Unification physics. That's another video, it looks like. And then it says, this work is now being circulated for peer review, and Nassim is going to be hosting workshops for interested scientists to immerse in these new paradigm notions. I'm thrilled that he is doing this, because I know it took many, many conversations for me to have a sufficient grasp of his work, and I was already an expert in the geometry of the field. Most physicists have little understanding of field geometry. I have attended numerous sessions where Nassim interacted with traditional scientists, Stanford, Harvard, MIT, Georgia Tech, etc., about this new awareness, and it wasn't easy. Some were open-minded enough to hang in there and get it. Others rejected it out of hand because it didn't fit with some of what they were taught in school. Imagine that. I mean, imagine if we just never moved forward, right? I'm just thinking that right now. Yeah, school doesn't teach the future, by the way. I don't know if that needs to be like a disclaimer when we sign up for school. It almost seems like that needs to be mentioned. You're not learning about the future, you're learning about the past, and you're learning about what's being done right now, but not about what can be created tomorrow, right? and tomorrow's always created today. We create it in the day we're in that day. You know, we make the future each and every day. We build it. Some called it inexcusable arrogance to try to do what Einstein couldn't. It's often joked that the paradigm of physics advances one funeral at a time. Tom Bearden talked about that, right? Tom Bearden talked about sometimes the scientists that won't move forward, when they pass away, then we finally move forward, right? Because there's no one to oppose it anymore, to oppose the new understandings and new discoveries. But that is not necessary, right? That is not necessary. Why not be open to new ideas and learn about them, right? And then you can contribute to the new understandings. That's much better, because collaboration is the greatest thing we can do. After Thrive came out, I recommended to the head of the Harvard-Smithsonian Institute of Astrophysics that he meet with Nassim about cosmological dynamics. He said that if Nassim didn't have a PhD, there would be nothing to learn from him. I allowed as how if that was his attitude. He would probably not be able to learn from Nassim. To his credit, a year later, he invited Nassim to the Institute for an afternoon with his faculty, which turned into an exciting several days of groundbreaking exploration. That's very exciting. See, so I think we are more open now, overall. I think everyone's more open to moving forward. Because resisting moving forward makes no sense, right? In any way, it just doesn't make sense at all. Here is my most succinct layman's version of the essence of this paper. Ooh, this sounds exciting, right? The universe is a boundless sea of alive and infinite energy. I'm going to repeat that again. I'm going to repeat that a couple more times. The universe is a boundless, right? No limits, right? Boundless. That's what I think of when I read boundless. Sea, and a sea is like the ocean, right? It goes all the way around the world, an ocean. But now we're talking about a universe ocean and beyond, an ocean that never ends. And it never ends two directions, as I see it. It never ends outwardly, and it never ends inwardly. It goes both ways without end. Now, some people might say, that's unimaginable, but that's okay. It's okay if we cannot imagine something, right? It's okay if we cannot quantify something. I think it's okay. if it's what it is, if it's a reality, right? Because we keep hearing that word renormalization, which says no, we're going to throw away infinity and we're going to quantify, we're going to falsely quantify, right? I mean, I'm using those words because if you ignore 99.999% of what's there, that to me is not truth, right? That's not what truth is. I was not taught that. I was taught that the truth is what we see, what we're experiencing, and what's actually there. I'll read it again. The universe is a boundless sea of alive, right? I think of alive as consciousness, thinking and feeling, and coexisting. I think of that. That's what I think of with alive. So boundless sea of alive and infinite energy. And I was just reading that Richard Feynman was saying, Nobel Prize winner and 38-year professor at Caltech in Pasadena, said that we do not know what energy is. We do not know what energy is fundamentally. Fundamentally, that's what I understand that to mean, is fundamentally. We do not know what energy is. We might know what it does. We write down what it does. We've seen what it does. We can know some of what it does. But what is it? What else is it? What else is there, right? And what else did Richard Feynman say? That history is fundamentally irrelevant. And I understand that to mean relating to science, meaning whatever we've done in the past does not determine what we can do today. It does not completely define what we can do today. Now, I'm adding my own thoughts here. I'm sharing with you my process of what I think of when I read this. So I'll read this again. This is very important, okay? Very important. You know, people say, oh, there's no energy. There's nothing. There's no energy anywhere. Nothing we can use. There's no usable energy in space, right? But in actuality, the universe is a boundless sea of alive and infinite energy. And that's the truth, right? That's not using the process of renormalization. Renormalization takes this and puts it in a box and puts it on the counter to collect dust, right? And then we don't talk about infinite energy anymore. But everyone knows there's infinite energy. Even people that don't know hardly anything about science or anything, they just know intuitively that there's infinite energy. How could people know that? It amazes me. And it's probably because they've heard people like Nasim Haramein speak, and they've heard people like Richard Feynman, and everyone has the Feynman, it seems like everyone has the Feynman lectures, right? I just bought those on Amazon for just over $100 on sale. The Feynman lectures on physics. It's 3 books in a set, right? What I really would like to do, and I'm looking for this, is to get those on DVD, MP3 players, something I can listen to, and I am looking for that. So if that's not out there yet, I hope someone can make that soon. And but I'm pretty sure that should be out there, right, for those of us that like to listen to our books. So I hope that comes soon. Please work on that if it hasn't been done yet. Let's read the next one here. So let's read that again one more time here. One more time, at least one more time. The universe is a boundless sea, right? A sea is an ocean, right? That's what I think of alive and infinite energy. Now, what do you think that word renormalization thinks of this? It sounds like it says this doesn't exist. We're not going to look at that. I think that's what it's saying. It's there, but we're not going to look at it. I don't think it says it's not there. I think it says it's there, but we're not going to look at it because we can't put a number on infinity, right? Or can we? I mean, do we need to? If we can't put a number on something, do we just say it doesn't exist? Is that what we do? I don't think so. That's not what I do. I'm not okay with that. If someone's going to say there's no energy there, at least mention that, well, there's actually infinite energy, but we can't, because we can't put a number on it, we're going to just look at numbers, you know. But when they say theoretically, when I read theoretically that this is infinite, there's infinite energy in space, right? And that all space is interconnected, which means that every point in space, every point, like the space between my fingers right here, is infinite energy, right? Because all points are connected. Let's move forward. Everything in the universe is in movement around a center. And then in parentheses, a black hole nucleus, sun, galactic center. Every system in the universe is spinning. There are no actual things in the universe, just patterns of flow of energy which seem solid because the frequency of our perception. That is really beautiful right there. I love learning. I just love it. I love when things make sense, and this really makes sense to me. It resonates with me, right? What doesn't resonate with me is when someone says, there's no energy anywhere. There's like nothing. It's like some small number that you can't even use. You can't even light an LED with it, right? But our world is lit up from this energy field already. And then people go, oh, no, we're not using the energy in space. We're not using it. We're making our own energy. But then that conflicts with the fact that we can't make energy, right? So people say we can't make or destroy energy, but we make energy. I guess we're paying the power plant to make energy for us, but they're not making energy. They're pumping it in from the environment. And all of our generators do that, and all of our circuits do that. All of our circuits are interacting with the environment, all of them. That's because we exist, and our circuits exist in this infinite energy universe. And that's my understanding. I'm sharing my understanding and my thoughts with you as I read this, okay? Okay, where were we? Every system in the universe is spinning. I think I already read this, but I'll read it again. There are no actual things in the universe, just patterns of flow of energy which seem solid because the frequency of our perception, right? The frequency of our perception. What if we change our perception? Then what do we see? It is the spin of each system, particle, atom, sun, etc., which gives it its mass. That's very interesting. It is the spin of each system, particles, atoms, sun, etc. It is the spin of each system which gives it its mass. See, right away when I read that, it makes me think of if I want to charge a battery with a generator, a very efficient generator, it makes me think that I need some motion, right? I know Tom Bearden made the motionless energy generator, but we also know that energy is motion, right? I mean, I think of it that way. I think of energy as motion. So if we're pulsing something, that represents the movement, right? So if we're moving energy, if we're pumping a pulse into metal, like magnets or a ferrous metal, that metal is interacting with it's just all frequencies taking place. What we're really doing is, I think the motionless energy generator of Tom Bearden, I think that's actually interacting directly with the infinite vacuum energy, if we call it that, or the infinite universe energy, right? And that's why it works. So how many different ways do you think there is to access that energy? I think there's endless different ways. Endless. We just have to, be creative and think of what we can think of. And we're not going to get the answer, I don't think, on the internet. This is helping us. I think anything that Nasim Haramein is saying is important, and it's foundational for understanding the universe. And I think that I think it's important to take these ideas and to see what we can imagine in terms of an efficient way of accessing this field, right? To charge our batteries and to power our vehicles so we can move through space, right? And travel the universe as well. That's important too. I mean, how many people would like to travel throughout space, right? I'm interested in other galaxies and other universes, definitely. Okay, so, and especially meeting all the intelligent life in the universes, right? In all the universes. Okay, let's see. Because everything is connected, there is... Okay, let me see if I read this one. It is the spin of each system, particle, atom, sun, etc., which gives it its mass. Okay, the next one is, because everything is connected, there is infinite energy at the center of every point, and there are infinite points in the universe. Infinite points, right? Assigning an arbitrary number to the energy at the centers of systems. Oh, here's that word, renormalization, right? What did they just say right here? We were just talking about that word. Assigning an arbitrary number to the energy at the centers of systems, and then in parentheses, renormalization, had misled physicists mathematically because it's actually infinite. Nassim has corrected this. Thank you very much, Nassim. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And a lot of people know about this, and it's talked about in books, and if you study a lot, you're going to see this a lot. A lot of people are talking about this and have interviewed many scientists, the top scientists throughout this world. And people know about this renormalization. They call it throwing away all that energy. They're just throwing it away. They go, oh, no, we took care of that. No, we took care of that. Yeah, we found this energy. We found infinite energy, and we renormalize it. And now it's not there anymore. We just don't look at it. And don't even bring it up because we don't like talking about it. That's the way the books, there's like a humor to it, right? There's a humor to it when it's brought up. But it does upset people and frustrate people because they're like, I didn't know about that. You know, some people say that, right? But people at very high levels of physics know this. They know this word renormalization. And I've read this word many, many times in my studies. Okay, assigning an arbitrary number to the energy at the centers of systems, renormalization, had misled physicists mathematically because it's actually infinite. Nassim has corrected this. And again, thank you, Nassim. Okay, where are we? What we call the proton is the fundamental pattern from which the so-called material world is formed. Don Smith talked about the proton as being the clock of the universe, right? I think that's the word he used. But double check yourself, Don Smith. And I'm talking about Don Smith in the book that Rick Friedrich, who's also on YouTube, had published the life's works. I'll call it the life's works of Don Smith, Donald Lee Smith. And that's the Energy Crafting Systematic Index. Let me think of the name of that book. Energy Crafting Systematic Index. Oh, I can't think of the name of the book right now. Let me see. Is it over there? Let me see if I can get some light over here. I have the book right over here, and I'm just going to see if I can, if there's a way I can. Here's the book here, the Don Smith book. It's called, oh, you can't really see it. It's called the Don Smith Magnetic Resonance Energy Crafting Systematic Index. Richard Friedrich is the one that put that work together. It's the collected works of Don Smith. And so I was just mentioning, just to clarify, I was mentioning that Don Smith said that the proton is the clockwork that makes the universe work. I think that's the way he worded it, but double check for yourself by reading that book. Okay, let's continue here, and I'll read that again. The proton, let's see. So it says, what we call the proton, trying to adjust the brightness on the phone here so it's not too bright. What we call the proton is the fundamental pattern from which the so-called material world is formed. That's very interesting, right? That's very interesting. The proton is a double torus energy vortex. And now I'm thinking of the GEAT fuel processor, right? That's what I visualize when I read that. The GEAT, Global Environmental Energy Technology. That's something to look into if you're interested in something that's beyond a fuel reformer, right? It's a fuel reformer in its most basic form. But it's been explained as having a torus, right? I don't know if it's a double torus, but that word has been associated with that technology. The proton is a double torus energy vortex, as is every sustainable energy system in the universe. All the so-called particles, electrons, neutrons, are actually toroidal vortices of energy in the waves of space. Reconciling, I don't know how to pronounce this word, I apologize. Reconciling, I think it says reconciling the wave particle duality paradox. The boundless field of energy is segmented at every scale into quanta units that are all toroidal dynamics. This quantization of space follows Buckminster Fuller's vector equilibrium and isotropic vector matrix geometry as depicted in Thrive 2. That's the documentary. It's very good. It's a free documentary to watch. I think it's on this page as well. Or if you just look up on Google, Thrive 1 and Thrive 2, you can find them for free there. The mass of the tiny proton is huge because its spin is a result of the entire rest of the universe. That's very interesting, right? I'll read that again. The mass, and when I associate mass with energy, right? When I think of mass, I think of energy. So when it says mass, I see energy. The energy of the tiny proton is huge, right? The mass, because when I think of mass, I think of Einstein's E equals mc squared, which has been also described as being the equation which tells us how much energy is required to create material universe, right? To create the material we think of as universe. That's my paraphrase and interpretation of what I've studied. The mass of the tiny proton is huge because its spin is a result of the entire rest of the universe. Just as electricity and magnetism were seen to be unified as different aspects of the toroidal dynamic, the other forces, gravity and the strong and weak nuclear forces, can also be understood as further refinements of this universal vortex in the field of energy in a connected universe. Documentary about Nassim and his work. So I'm going to watch that as well. And I recommend you watch that if you're interested in learning more. I would say study everything Nassim has done, all the work you can find on him. And I think a lot of that, or all of it, may be connected to this website here, which again is, let's go back to the site here, Free to Thrive. I think that's going to have a lot of information, resources to learn more about Nassim's work. But double check for yourself, confirm that for yourself, please. Okay, let's see where I was. Yeah, so the extrapolation of these principles mathematically yields the correct energy mass of the proton, its charge radius, numerous other fundamental constants, and for the total mass energy of the universe. Very interesting. I just want to mention something I was reading about, and I'm talking about something else I was reading somewhere else in my research, but it mentioned the proton is just a reverse spinning electron, like an electron, literally an electron spinning backwards. If that's true, what does that tell us about spin direction, right? Just literally spinning something clockwise versus counterclockwise. That's what I think of as spin. Now, I know spin has much more meanings than what I'm saying right now, but I also know that when we spin a motor or a generator in one direction, like vertically, right, versus horizontally, there's often said to be a significant difference between the two. So how we have something oriented in space and where it's pointed can make a difference. I've read this a lot when I was beginning my studies in energy and the universe and things, when I was really expanding my studies. And I was like thinking to myself, well, how does that work? How could just turning something a different direction make a difference? Why can it spin even faster or be even more efficient depending on the direction it's facing, right? And now it's making more sense to me over time because I keep reading about these things keep coming up again and again, right? But it's just interesting, right? Is a proton a reverse spinning electron? Is it? And maybe that's already been clarified here, but I also don't know for sure that it was. I sometimes I read things and it doesn't make sense to me until much later. But I just wanted to mention that to you because I'm just sharing my thoughts with you as well as reading this to you. Okay, so did we finish this part? The extrapolation of these principles mathematically yields the correct energy mass of the proton, its charge radius, numerous other fundamental constants, and for the total mass energy of the universe. Okay, let's look at these pictures here. Very interesting. Okay, let's go back to reading here. More peer review and experimental validation will obviously be necessary in the coming months and years to anchor the veracity of this unified field theory, if, in fact, it is accurate. As with most steps along his unusual path, Haramein's unified field theory will probably be met with huge backlash, cynicism, insults, ad hominem attacks, and attempts to ban or cancel him. What will actually matter is, does his model align more accurately with the nature of reality than previous attempts? He stands on the shoulders of Dirac, Bohm, Einstein, Planck, Bucky Fuller, Walter Russell, Arthur Young, and others. And he has forayed out on his own, following his inner guidance in a courageous and relentless quest for truth, for the benefit of all sentient creatures. The last line of acknowledgement in his paper is, "Last but not least, we would like to thank the universe for its inspiring mathematical and physical beauty." That's beautiful. I like that. The completion and sharing of Nassim's life quest in this paper represents a milestone moment for humanity. The metaphysical and physical are unified scientifically. Science and spirit don't have to be at odds. The implication of understanding how energy actually works opens the door to widespread harmonious energy access through new resonance devices. The mathematical and experimental proof will validate the spiritual notion that we live in a universe of infinite abundance if we learn how to access it harmoniously, right? When I read that, I think of not forcing energy, but to allow it to flow. And Ralph Ring talked about that, not forcing electrons, but letting them, encouraging them to move where you need them to be and to do what you need them to do, but not forcing. Okay, I think that's it for that. That's all we're going to read for now. There's some comments below which you could read on your own. So anyway, I hope this was interesting to you. I wanted to share this with you. And again, we're on Free to Thrive, and here's the rest of that address here. And you should be able to find this if you look on Google for this information. You should be able to connect with this place here, this website. And there's a lot of valuable, important information here. And thank you for sharing your time with this video and watching it. And I hope you have a wonderful day, evening, and I hope that your journey of learning is absolutely exciting and without end. Okay, see you next time, everyone. Bye-bye.